Standardizing on your preps is a philosophy that every prepper should consider. It is a huge benefit to your preparedness. Hey, I'm Todd Sepulveda, and this is another Ready Your Future podcast. Thanks for hanging out with me on this one. Hey, we're going to be looking at Daisy Luther's website today, The Organic Prepper. We're going to be looking at an article actually written by Jose Martinez. Jose is he's a prepper who lives in Venezuela, so he's talked a lot about all the situation in Venezuela and all the collapse and everything. He's gone through all of that. Lived in the city at one point, left Venezuela, came back, and now he's homesteading in the mountains. So this article is about really his idea of standardization. We've talked a lot about that in the preparedness community, but really we haven't talked about it enough because I think it's a real big game changer when you start talking about standardization. So I'm going to bounce off of this article. We're going to read a little bit of it, but I'm really going to be talking about it from the overall general side of preparedness because he is really taking care of more like the homesteading piece of it. So we're just going to read little bits and pieces here. So we're going to go ahead and go check this out. I'm going to, as always, just bounce off of this article. So again, this is called Establishing Standards for Prepping. It comes to us from theorganicprepper.com. So let's go ahead and jump into this one. All right. So beginning off, he says, those in the Army and other corps know that using standards is a good choice and used extensively for good reasons. I highly say yes to this. I agree with him, I guess, for lack of a better term, because I know it happens across industry. One of the things that I do is I work in technology, and I know that we just don't let anybody buy technology in our school district. We allow people to give suggestions and things like that, but we standardize across certain technology because it makes it easier to repair, it makes it easier to support, it makes it easier just to go out and purchase in bulk. There's a lot of good reasons for that. And I think preppers should take that philosophy and apply it to their preparedness because it makes a lot of sense. So let's go ahead and continue reading here. A lot of good stuff here. So if you already have a diesel engine, again, remember he's looking at this from the homesteading piece. So he says if you already have a diesel engine in your tractor and rely on this for most of your homestead chores, a wise choice is to use diesel as the main fuel, for instance. So basically he's saying if you're using diesel engines or you have a tractor that's using diesel, the more that you can standardize across your equipment, whether that's a generator, whether that is a vehicle, the better that you would be, right? You get to standardize and use that diesel across the different vehicles that you have or the different devices. Moving on. Diesel mechanics can be relatively simple, but it is not as cheap as gasoline engines. However, reliability is a plus that could be priceless in the long run. And again, if you are someone who is homesteading, this makes a lot of sense. Those of you who have diesels, I know growing up, my mom had a diesel vehicle and it did cost more to repair, but it lasted for a long time, right? Maybe longer than she actually wanted. All right, moving on. He says, summarizing, there is a good reason why practically all industries use standards. And again, I said that at the very beginning. It just makes a whole lot of sense. So let me stop right here and just give you an example of what I mean by standardizing across your preparedness, all right? So let's just take, for example, batteries. Let's say that you start buying equipment and you have flashlights. So you have some flashlights that take D size, you have flashlights that take A, flashlights that take AA. Maybe you have some really weird ones in there that you have purchased. And what winds up happening is you have all these different flashlights that you're using, and you got to remember, right? What does this flashlight use? What does this flashlight use? What does this flashlight use? And then you've got to store them. We always have redundancy. We always have batteries, right? That we're trying to buy in case we run out. So we're buying, I'm like, okay, I have to have D batteries and A batteries and AAA batteries and this other weird battery that, I bought this thing on sale or whatever. And so you're always having to do that. And then you're having to inventory them, you're having to store them, you're having to make sure that they can easily be found. If you are in a situation where you're putting these things in your backpack, well then, okay, you got to take a little bit of this battery, a little bit of that battery, a little bit of this battery, and they're not interchangeable if you need them for whatever reason. My flashlight runs out of batteries, but I have a headlamp, and so I can take my headlamp batteries and put them in my flashlight. That's the idea, but that's not the case if you have a bunch of different batteries all over the place. So one of the ideas here in preparedness is to take all of those different, devices, that gear that you're using, and try to, let's just say, AAA batteries. One of the things that I talk about a lot is my headlamp, and I seem to use that all the time, and it carries AAA batteries. So if I can have AAA batteries in a flashlight, if I can have AAA batteries in, my ham radios or the radios that I use or whatever it might be, or maybe, whatever it just boils down to, it's so much better. I can have those AAA batteries and I can plug them in wherever. It makes a lot of sense. All right, let's go ahead and keep moving here. Establishing standards and buying in bulk can significantly reduce operating costs, optimize your maintenance processes, and extend the lifespan of the equipment. Again, agree here, and I think that's important. Kind of already touched on that. Let's move on here. One of the keys is advantages of standardization, and then he's going to go into like cost reduction. So by standardizing fuels and lubricants, you can negotiate better prices from suppliers due to increased purchasing volume. So one of the things that we do is, I do have some AA and AAA devices, right? But when I buy those, I can go buy them in bulk. So instead of just going and buying 5 or 10 packs, I can go buy a really big pack at one of, Sam's or Costco or one of those, and have a whole lot of those batteries, stocked up. And so I can save money that way by doing that. All right, moving on here, and let's see, continuing on. Reduce storage needs. So by using a singular fuel type, you minimize the needs to store and manage multiple fuels, reducing storage space. Again, if you are truly doing preparedness correctly, and you're just not, preppers wind up doing that. They buy stuff, they throw it in a closet, and then they forget about it, and then they go looking for it, they can't find it. I know that, early on, I was guilty of that. I know other preppers are guilty of that as well. If you're doing it right, though, you are inventorying, you are labeling, you are storing them so that you can easily find them when you need to. So reducing your storage needs, but also because you're not labeling them and inventorying them, you can find them all in one place. You know exactly where to go. You're not fumbling around. All right. He says here, increased operation time. And I didn't really highlight anything here, but the idea, one of those things is that you can it's easy to move between those. So let's just say that you have a flashlight, and I'm going to go back to this flashlight thing, because you have a flashlight and there's no okay, let me open this up, or let me try to remember what kind of battery is here. It's just, you already know the battery is going out. You need to go find another battery. You know that it's AA or AAA or whatever you decide to standardize on. You already know that, and so it's just really a no-brainer. And really, when you're thinking about an emergency situation, you don't want to have to be thinking about that, right? Or finding the batteries and trying to, in the dark, you're doing all that. You want to be able to just get it and go, and you want to just be able to do what you need to do. All right, moving on here, he talks about supplier selection. So we all know how networking is important in crisis or SHTF scenarios. Having reliable suppliers who can consistently provide the products you need to keep the machines oiled has a remarkable added value. So again, there's been some opportunities out there where you can find some really good deals on, let's just say, gear, but they come with some really whacked out batteries. Again, I'm staying with the batteries, but really you can go with ammo. I remember one of the things when I was looking at firearms, there was this firearm that this guy who's a ex-police officer was willing to share, to sell me. He was going to sell it to me at a really good price. And he was like, Todd, I'll go to the fire range, I'll train you, I'll do all these different kinds of things. But when I was looking at what type, the caliber it had, and I was just like, that's just not standard, And so I would have had trouble finding the ammo especially when we've had those shortages and whatnot, it would have been harder to find those. And so I chose not to go with that. And so the same idea here is if you go with something that is always available, it just makes it so much easier. I mean, it's probably going to wind up costing less, but it makes it so much easier for you when you are purchasing and when you are trying to stock up like preppers do. Moving on in this article, he talks about testing here. All right. And that's another thing. I mean, definitely we need to test our preps. He talks about weaponry. He touches a little bit about that, and then he goes in and basically he's talking about the standardization here of weapons, right? And so the same idea, I kind of already touched on the ammo thing. The same kind of idea is like, are you standardized on a specific rifle, right? Cartridge? Are you on, a handgun ammo? I know sometimes a lot of people out there, they like different, firearms. They collect firearms, and with that are the different types of ammo. And if that's you, more power to you. If you are doing it from just a pure preparedness place and you just want to defend yourself, then it's a situation of, okay, let me standardize across firearms or across rifles. And maybe you and family members own the same type of rifle, or at least it's chambered in the same caliber. And you can go ahead and you can trade out ammo, or you can share ammo as needed. Same kind of thing with firearms, right? It's like, I'm going to go ahead and, handguns, is you're going to go ahead and have the same, chambered in the same caliber so that you can go ahead and switch out ammo, and it makes it easy. One of the things is like you can even standardize on the actual handgun and even magazines and things like that you would wind up having, and you can standardize across those things. He talks about voltage and current, and I know, one of the things that I did in my home is just kind of standardize on LED light bulbs. And so he says here, standardizing the bulbs for lighting could save you some money. And definitely, you have standard, outside we have, different lights, and inside we have different lights, and you have all those different kinds of things. But if you can standardize as much as you can standardize, you can buy, again, in bulk. You're not buying just a few. You're buying the bigger packages because you know that you're going to wind up doing that. He talks a little bit about plumbing here. And so I think that's kind of weird. But again, he's coming from the homesteading side of things. And so he's probably running plumbing or irrigation and those different kinds of things. Maybe he has a well. And so that probably means a whole lot more to him. And so I completely understand that. He talks about storage containers here. So let's read a little bit here. He says, believe it or not, standardizing common storage containers can improve food storage efficiency and time at the moment of an evacuation. You can get good deals on stackable containers. So I don't know necessarily, for myself, I always talk about, am I bugging in or bugging out? I'm going to be bugging in for the most part. But let's talk a little bit about storage containers. There's a lot to say for standardizing across storage containers. And so let's just say you're doing your own bulk food storage, and you're using plastic buckets, and you're using Mylar bags and O2 or absorbers, and you're doing all of that. So one of the things people say is, if you're trying to save money, go to a bakery. And, a lot of the times, and I've done this before, go to the grocery store and say, hey, are there any, icing buckets that you are going to throw away? I'd love to take those off your hands. Sometimes they'll just like, hey, yeah, come at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We'll save them over here for you and give them to you. If they're really nice, they will clean them out for you. But for the most part, they don't. They just seal them up. Like, I'm looking for buckets with lids on there. They just put the lid back on and they give them to you. And then you're stuck coming home and cleaning them out. Listen, if you are looking for the free, that's great. They're free. We're not gonna say anything about that, anything negative. But there's been times when I have done that, and they have cleaned them out for me. And so that's really great. And you get to know those people, and you really want to, be friends with them because they go the extra mile there. But the problem is, when you get those, you have all different kind of sizes. And then when you start to stack them, it's like, okay, I can stack here, but then you get to a point where the stacking doesn't seem to really play out, and you're playing a game, right? It's like Tetris with your food storage, trying to make it all fit correctly. But if you standardize across 5-gallon buckets, right? Then like, okay, I can stack these up a little bit easier. I don't have to worry so much about stacking them and playing games here. I just know how far, how high, how deep I can wind up going with my storage. And so that's just, I said food storage, but really you can use all kinds of containers. If you have a closet and you are, storing first aid supplies and you have them in containers, or you are, doing your other preps and you have them in containers so that you can see where everything's at, right? You've done an inventory, you've slapped something on the front of it so you know what's inside of those. The more that you can stack and the more that you have just consistency, the better it is for you. And so that just makes a whole lot of sense. All right, moving on here, he talks about gear. And I think I've already kind of handled this a little bit, but we can talk about this again. Just the gear of your flashlights and your ammo and all the other things. Listen, there is a benefit to having standardization, not just for you and that everything's there, but also for your family. Right. So if you are working with your family and you're doing your gear, right, you are standardizing across that gear. Let's just say you got a radio, maybe not even a handheld ham radio, but just radios to be able to communicate. And you might be able to go out there and find everything that's on sale. And you I've got this type this time and this type the next time. So you've got, a set of 6 different types of radios out there. But and they might be able to talk to each other, but let's say one of them breaks down and maybe you lose a button or you break an antenna or something along those lines. You can still keep that radio and maybe use it for parts for other things. Maybe the battery works across the other radios. So if you have the same radio across like your whole family, then it's so much easier to be able to use that one for spare parts or switch out batteries or switch out the holsters that it comes with. And so it just makes a lot of sense. I talked about flashlights. I talked about ammo. There's all the different things out there that if you standardize, there just comes a lot of benefit with all of that. All right. So let me bounce off on just making some other, or leaving you with some other thoughts here when we talk about just standardizing, right? It's just not about making it easy. There's a lot of benefits, right? There's that efficiency. It reduces time trying to search for items and find like, okay, I know I have this one piece of gear here, but I have this other piece of gear over there, trying to figure all that out. It's just like you can standardize across not only your gear and not only like your food storage, you can standardize also across skills. So maybe when you're training your family members or you're training yourself, and it just becomes a standard operating procedure of how are we going to start a fire, right? And it's like, we're first going to use lighters, or then we're going to use matches, and then we're going to go to flint and steel. And so everybody has the same kind of gear. Everybody understands, okay, this is the process of doing it. And so you're standardizing across all those things. And so not only on your gear and the things that you're purchasing in inventory, but you're standardizing on skill. So it creates this efficiency for us to be able to realize, okay, there are some standard operating procedures here that we always wind up doing. It's less duplication of effort, right? It's a faster time response because you're reducing that cognitive load, especially in an emergency situation. You don't want to be like figuring out, okay, what is my next step? What do I do? What's the next thing that I need to do? Or where do I find this? It makes it easy if you have standards across the way. It's less stress reduction for us. If you are standardizing, there's less stress reduction for you and for your family members, because again, you want those no-brainer decisions when you are in an emergency situation. Now, we need to critically think, we need to be flexible, we need to be all those things. But if you can take off the stress, if you can remove the stress as much as possible from that emergency, how much better would it be? All right. And so it takes away that decision making. Okay, what do I do here? If you standardize on, okay, this is what we do in this kind of a situation. Let's just take fires and you fire drill. If you have standardized on, if we have a fire and the fire smoke alarms go off and you get out of the house, we are going to standardize on meeting here in the front of the house. Or if it is too hot, we're going to meet at the corner of the street. Right? That is where we're going to meet. If we are bugging out, there are standards on, okay, this is the way that we are going to go by car. If we can't make it by car, this is the way we're going to go if we are on a bicycle, right? Or if we can't go on a bicycle, this is the way that we're going to go if we're walking. If it is a long way to get there and you are walking, well, this is where we're going to stop, right? And you mark it on a map. Everybody understands that it's the standard. And if you get to that situation or you get to that point and you know there's people that are not with you from your family or from your group or whatever it might be, then the standard is we're going to leave a message here to let other people know that we have been here. Or if there's not a message, then you realize that we haven't been here or we're going a different route. So it's just the standards that everybody knows. And it just takes away that decision making process and the problems, because you're able to just like, okay, what is the next step for me to do, right? There's a financial benefit because we've already talked a little bit about that, but it's that bulk. You don't have that waste of, okay, I made this purchase and it's some weird Chinese flashlight and it takes some weird battery and I got to go buy these batteries or whatever. I'm just going to throw this away, right? Wasted money because I bought this weird gear that really doesn't go into the rest of my preps, right? And then one of the things that we always talk about in preparedness is just redundancy, right? We are always talking about how can we be more redundant in our preps, in our gear, in our food storage, in our decision making. Again, it helps to understand those things. So I've talked a lot about the standardization, not only across gear, not only across decisions that you might have to make. There's a lot of other things, and I can talk about them, but I'm going to throw some things out, like your first aid kits, right? If you are standardized on your first aid kits, then you know what is in there. It's like, okay, little Johnny has a first aid kit, and Mama has a first aid kit, and Daddy has a first aid kit, and Sister Sally has a first aid kit, and they're all different. How beneficial would it be if you're in an emergency situation and little Johnny is down and you need to help him out for whatever reason, and you get Sister Susie's first aid kit and you know exactly what is in there, you know exactly where it's at in the first aid kit because you've set those first aid kits to be standard across everybody's first aid kit. Same idea in bug out bags. I've heard about this. I think it was Dave Canterbury who talked about this in the past, but having a standardized bug out bag so that everybody knows, so that the family members, you need to get to your compass. Everybody has their compass in a certain position, right? A certain place. If you need to get to the first aid kit, everybody has their first aid kit in a certain place. You need to get to the food, or you need to get to your firearm, or whatever it might be. Everything is in a standard place. So there's no real thinking. You're not like trying to dig through your bag, trying to get through everything. And so it just makes a lot of sense. Standardizing on your vehicles, that's something that's possible, right? Standardizing on your firearms, we talked a little bit about that, and all the different things that are there. What about standardizing on your emergency contacts and the way that you've set those up? I know that I've talked about this before in the past, but getting your emergency contact sheets prepared, maybe you make those, you make one of them, and then you share those out with all your family members. So it is standardized, but you let them know, like in an emergency situation, if we can't contact each other here with our phones because whatever reason the emergency situation has the phones here in the city or where we're at, they're all bogged down. But if we can call out, maybe we call, Aunt Joan, who is living in a couple of cities far away, and we're able to call her and leave a message with her and say, look, I can't get to everybody else here in town, but I'm calling you to leave a message, and then that's standardized across your family or across your group, and they know to call Aunt Joan, and so she's the person who's relaying messages then. So you standardize across that. Maybe you standardize across doctors, you standardize across your dentist, you have all that, but you have all that in one emergency contact sheet. You standardize across your emergency binder. And so it's like, okay, this is where I have all of our medical information. This is where we have all of our account information. This is where we have all our birth certificates, social security cards, and you have it all situated in one way. Even if you were to do that digitally, maybe you have the same type of storage system in your digitally in folders. And so, you have your medical folder here, you have your medical folder in the digital aspect as well. So you're standardizing across that just to make it so much easier on you and your family in thinking things through. You can standardize on inventory, right? And then just go ahead and do the, you have the way that you inventory, you know where it's at, everybody knows where it's at. If they take something from whatever, maybe they take a one of your portable batteries, right? And you're like, okay, if you check out a portable battery, my kids are always asking me for the portable battery. You use one of these, then you got to let me know, you got to mark it down here. So this is the standard all the time. You can use it, but I need you to mark it here so I know that you took it, so I'm not looking for it a little bit later on. You just standardize on how you are doing that. Let me, I want to close out with because there's a lot of things that we can talk about, but I want to just give you just a real world example here as I'm closing out. So let's just say that you are someone who you're working, you come home from work, and you're tired. It's been a long day, but you want to go and you're ready to to eat, and so you got to cook dinner. So you go to your pantry, you open it up, and you just stare at it. You go to your refrigerator, you open it up, and you just stare at it. You know that you have food there. You got stuff there that you can make, but you're so tired. You've been worn out, and you just really can't think, and you just really don't want to focus. And it's just like, I can't do it. So then you wind up, ordering a pizza or, eating some crackers with peanut butter on it or something along those lines. But let's just say you came home and you standardize on a menu. This is pretty simple stuff here, but you standardize on a menu and you know that you have all the stuff because you purchased it, you created your menu on the weekend and you ordered your stuff or you went to go pick it up or whatever. You know you have the stuff. So you come home from work and you're dead tired and you know that you need to cook and you need to eat and you can't really focus, you can't really think, but you go and you look at your menu. Maybe you have it on, on the pantry door, or maybe you have it on the refrigerator, whatever it is, and you look and you're like, Monday, this is what I'm making for dinner. And you're like, okay. And it takes the cognitive load, right? All the stress, all the junk that you've been dealing with. And you're like, okay, I am making this for dinner. And so you go and you pull it out and you start making it. So you're not really having to think through it. Maybe you even prepare it ahead of time. But you get this standard I standardize on my food and on a menu. And so I know what I'm doing. So it makes it so much easier for me to go ahead and live the life that I need to live during the week. One of the things that we've standardized on when talking about food storage and just kind of keeping it there is pinto beans. I grew up, in a Hispanic household, and I did not eat kidney beans and navy beans and all the other beans. We eat pinto beans, right? And my wife can make some really mean charo beans. So I'm like, I'm good with that. So one of the things that, I'm not going to go out and buy navy beans and kidney beans and all the other beans that I've never ever eaten before that I really don't like to eat. I purchase pinto beans, and that's what I have because I'm used to eating those things. So I've kind of standardized across pinto beans and using that as all the different ways that we can wind up using it. So just a couple of ideas here at the very end. So I hope that kind of makes sense for you as we're kind of ending it here. But standardizing on your preps, whatever that might be, on your physical preps, right? standardizing on your skills, standardizing on your ideas and your thoughts, and your procedures makes a whole lot of sense to make life a lot easier for us. So I'm going to go ahead and end it there. Guys, I want to remind you, go check out Daisy's website, The Organic Prepper. Daisy has been just putting it out for many, many years. She's been doing a great job. And so go support her. Go support Jose and read his article over there. Again, establishing standards for prepping. I'm going to link it for you to make it really easy on you. And so we want to support our preparedness friends out there, whether it's on YouTube or podcasts or on blogs, as much as you can. Let's go ahead and support them. So I'm going to go ahead and end it there. Listen, if you found value in this video and you're still here, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit the bell so that you're notified when we release another video, another podcast episode. And then lastly, I want to leave you with this. If you would like 25 handpicked preparedness articles that every prepper should read, when I was running Prepper website, there were some articles that I found that I thought that were very valuable, and I put those in one big PDF to kind of just send out, and the links in the whole deal. And here's the thing: some of these articles, they're gone. The websites, and that's why I talk about supporting preppers out there, is the websites are gone, but I had the links. So I'm able to share these links with you so that you can go and you can still read these articles. So it's 25 preparedness articles that every prepper should read. If you are interested in that, there's a link in the description. You can go and you can click on it, and you can, I'll send it to you, right? And when you subscribe. All right, guys, I'm going to end it there. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you. God bless you. We'll catch you on the next video.